Question number one is, what is your story? Right. So I'm going to go through them all. And you're allowed to laugh. Just be natural, yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah. All right.
So my story goes really, really long ago. Like, goes way back to my primary school when I kind of started expressing different levels of creativity that I didn't even know was in me. I remember when I was really, really young, there's certain things that I did, and I mean, if you understand how primary school works in Nigeria, you know that it's too young for someone in primary one or two to be the one to do the drawings that would go to classes as senior as primary six and the rest. So but that was what I was doing. I was commissioned, I was usually commissioned as a 6, 7 year old to do drawings for classes all through school. And it was something that I didn't know I loved to do it. But I mean, when I grew up, I realized that that was like a very strong artistic tendency to be an artist, a fine artist. I'll draw animals, I'll draw objects, and in the full cardboard paper, and then just put it in classes. And it was really wonderful. My then fine arts teacher, bless her, she really, really kind of saw it in me because she was always coming to me and always telling my mom, "This boy is an artist," because I was a good, I drew very well. And at home, I've had instances where my mom's friend would come over, and I would just sitting at one corner of the house, I would start making sketches of them. And when I make the sketches, sometimes the women would just look at me and, what is he doing? And she'll be like, "Don't worry, he's drawing you." So I kind of like had that. And every of my notes in primary school, every of my notes in primary school was filled with drawings, the back of my notes. And I really used to get like a lash from my mom every time because she was a teacher, or she was a teacher in my school then. And she didn't like the idea that it wasn't filled with calculations and, it was just me drawing people, basically anything really. And I think that talent kind of died. I don't know how, but it was just because maybe it wasn't picked up, or my mom didn't, or my parents really didn't see anything much to it, other than, okay, it's one of the things you can do, And then amidst all of that, I kind of found myself in the drama club where I was a star actor, and I was so full of it as a child. I think I like to think that when I was young, I kind of knew that I was very good. I was very good, an actor. And I remember if we're doing like a play, for instance, in primary school, if I'm not acting the lead, I wouldn't act, and I mean, so growing up again and thinking about these things, it looks as though I kind of knew, but I know better now because if, like I said, if I'm not acting the lead role, I'm not going to act. It was always that or nothing. So I was like the star. Anytime like there's a story and then they have like a male lead, I'm always like the child that does that. And whilst that is going on, I also did delve into music and kind of like started developing as a singer, a very good one at that. I mean, I in the junior choir, I was singing so good that one of the times, many years ago, when we had like a project that some foreigners came to the church, and I did sing, and they were so intrigued, that they kind of like spoke to my choir director then and said, are they looking at exporting my talent out, in my person, like taking me out and all of that. But that didn't see the light of the day because then again, I had to finish school and all of those things. So my story is really one of somebody who have gone through life picking different, no, not picking, understanding different aspects of himself, and for the longest, it was to me like a curse because it looked as though I couldn't settle into one. because I could sing, I could draw, I write good. I'm a good director, artistic director. Um, on projects, I'm a good project manager. So that all of these aspects were happening in my life, and it took me through corporate world and creative world, where in the corporate world I did work as a media and communications consultant. I was heading that department in some companies, and but on the outside, which is like the pure art, I was producing events. I was involved in TV and film. I did a bit of acting growing up. After primary school, obviously, I did a bit of acting, but that didn't go through because I had to go to another country to school for university. So between the year, I think 2015 and 2019, I had a bit of, I would say, depression because I'd done so many things for so long that I was made to believe that I needed to settle into just one thing and be like an expert in it. But it was not going to work with me because I think the reason why I had that depression really is because I would think that if I settle into writing and being just a writer, what happens to my voice as a singer? I mean, I sing better than half of the people that sing on the Nigerian music scene. I make bold to say that, yeah, I sing way better than half of them. And I'll just worry about what happens to that part. And then what happens to me wanting to be a director on film project? What happens to because society wants you to be like an expert, just be like a writer and just focus on that and build upon that and just be like, but some of us are not wired that way. I'm sorry. And we have to blame it on God for blessing us a bit more than other people. Like I said, it was a struggle for me. But I got to a point where I started embracing it. I kind of like started loving it. And I saw that I was an asset in every room. I go here and then there's something that I can do in that room. I go to this place. And I know there are a lot of people like this who kind of like just shy away from their abilities just because society kind of wants them to just be known for one thing. Yeah. So that's my story. And as I speak today, I know that I'll still have another interest to pursue and I would pursue them. So it might be like 5 years down and I'll be doing another project. And that's me, really.
So, who or what is the Black Multipod?
Right. So in my research of understanding my wiring, of understanding how I am built, how my creative makeup is, um, I went on journals, I went online, I read, um, and through that, I kind of discovered the word multipod. Now, the word multipod is a stylized short version of multipotentiality, right? So now there's this word, there's multipotentiality, and there's multipotentialite, which is the person. So in that case, it becomes a noun, and but multipod is now like a shorter form of multipotentialite. It's an alternative word. Now, if you go on the dictionary, it's not there because it's not like an approved word. So it's just a coinage. And the only place I think you'd see it, or the earliest place you'd see the word used, is any of Emily Wapnick's materials, because she's like known to have coined that word out, and ever since I found that word, it kind of like spoke to me, and I kind of understood that this word, that is just there. A lot of people don't use it because they don't even know what it is like. So one of the things why, and the reason why I wrote the book, The Black Multipod, is for people to understand first that there's a word that describes people like us, and then the black in it is me, myself, obviously being a black man. So when you say the black multipod, it's can pass like an alias for me being a black man and a black multipod, because the book kind of like goes through my life, but in a direction that somebody who can resonate with it, can find healing through it. So it's more like a therapeutic book, and that's what the black multipod really, really is.
Do you think that this book would have helped your younger self?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. If I was younger and I kind of read this book, I obviously would live better and make better choices because I've had to like make choices all through life, and those choices were because of streamlining. So if I'd read this book, and so pretty much the book is also to my younger self. If I'd read this book prior, I'll definitely have maybe written this book earlier again, because I would have understood my genetic makeup, my creative makeup, my wiring, because I'm not wired like every other person and we exist really. So not everybody is wired. Some people are wired to become just one thing and good luck to them really. They're just one thing, they're known for it, they're doing it, fine and good. But if you find among the creatives, you'll realize that we're always multi-wired because there's always that going on, and a lot of people need to just use the word more because that's like the umbrella term that should qualify people that are like us, really.
There seems to be a lot of pressure on multipods in society, sometimes even on social media.
Mm.
So, what do you have to say about the pressure that multipods have to deal with? Do you think that multipods should pay attention to this pressure, or do you think that they should just carry on being their true selves?
Right. So I'll start from the societal pressure. Um, Especially in the corporate world, you're expected to either be a marketing executive and just be that, or you're required to be something else. So the pressure comes when you're trying to find work in a society that does not embrace multipotentiality, that thrives on specialism and expertise. So the pressure is you now having to choose. So that's where the problem is. You now have to choose one of the many things you do or you can do just because you want to fit into some kind of work. You understand? And it's made a lot of people live unhappy lives, to be fair, really. Because if I didn't, understand how I was and I did stay depressed all through the years that I kind of like was finding me, I think I would probably have just like quit everything and say, you know what, I'm just not doing this. I'll just go and probably become a mech engineer, just something that's very direct. And because the society does not offer that welcoming hand to people who are wired differently, yeah. So that's the pressure. And then to multipods who are struggling, um, the truth is the world is changing and change is the only constant thing really, and a lot of people are more interested in what you can do, right, and how you do it. So and now the reason why a lot of people are interested in the how is because there's a saying that my dad usually says. He says the car went over there and over there went the car is the same thing. So you're saying the same thing, you understand, but in different ways, right? So if you can get a job done by yourself as a multipod, for instance, I've handled a project where I wrote the script, I directed, I produced, I did voiceover, right? So that's the how, right? Now, this is something that's going to cost somebody a fortune to get all of these creatives in different aspects, but I'm doing it. So you can choose to do it getting 5 people or getting a multipod to do it. So at the end of the day, the car went over there, So yeah.
So, do you feel that the societal pressure placed on multipods comes from a place of jealousy, or do you think it's just a lack of understanding?
It's a lack of understanding, one. Um, I'll come to jealousy, but it's a lack of understanding because we've been sold, like I said, we've been sold this whole idea that jack of all trade, master of none is a bad phrase, which shouldn't really, because the full phrase, in my research again, the full phrase is it's jack of all trade, master of none, but oftentimes better than master of one, right? So we tend to take the latter part out just to suit the stigmatization of jack of all trade. And now, if you find funny enough, many many years ago, around the 50s in Hollywood film, people who are jack of all trades were praised. It was a salutation, really. It wasn't like derogatory or anything. When you say someone's a jack of all trade, he can do all. So and that's where you have, like in film, you have like the triple threat. You have the singer, dancer, and actor. It was something they usually did. I mean, if you go through old Hollywood, everyone on TV could sing, act, and dance. It was like the standard, you know. So during that era, we had people thriving as multipods, and they were calling them jack of all trades. But now people tend to, an actor is an actor, a singer is a singer. But what if you can do all three? So that's where the understanding, I'm wondering at what point we lost it, because many many years ago it was a thing to really laud, but now it's a thing that's usually frowned at, just wanting you to exist as one. So that's the understanding. A lot of people do not know that some people are good, and the thing is, this is an entire different topic, but there are measures to it. They'll say, no, you can't be a singer, dancer, and actor and be good at all three. Hello, have you met Beyonce? So when you understand that some people can be really good at these things. I mean, it does not have to be. I could be a singer and a dancer and an actor, and as a singer, I'm better than a singer that's just a singer. You understand? So that kind of thing happens. So, but people do not understand that, and society, like I said, is just thriving on expertise and specialism, that we neglect people who can't major in one thing, rightfully and shamelessly so. And then to jealousy, of course, because when you seem to be. I've worked in work environment where um, it's always a case of, is this person the only one doing this, or can't we try someone else? But then again, I can. You understand? So the jealousy factor also plays a part, really, because some people just feel like if you're a multipod, you're doing too much, you're doing the most, you're trying to be everywhere, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's on the lower scale anyway. But I think the larger scale is the misunderstanding and misconception of what the multipod lifestyle is like.
One great example of a multipod in Hollywood is Jamie Foxx.
Exactly.
When we're looking at the topic multipod, um, part of the rhetoric or sort of like lack of understanding might be around productivity.
Yep.
Because some people might assume that if you do so many things, but you do them not to standard, then you're probably less productive. Can you speak a little bit on that? In your experience as a multiple, do you find that sometimes you are low on energy, so maybe when you're doing multiple projects, you're not as productive? Or do you think that actually the alternative is the case?
Right. So that brings us to the definition of multipod. It says one who has many paths and follows them either cyclically, simultaneously, or both. Right. So some people follow it one after the other, some side by side. Now for me, I realize that I'm the one who likes to follow one after the other, because I naturally do not like to have too many projects, the same type of project. So I can have a singing project, but I can't have two singing projects at the same time. I would have a singing project, I'll have a film project, I'd have a writing project. You understand? But I can't have each of, or two of each, side by side. So that's how I function. And for productivity, for me, that's really helped. And to be fair, one of the things that the book also talks about is the book does not also glorify lack of productivity, because that's where some multiples will tend to hide under and say, well, I'm good at so many things, but I'm not at the peak of each of them. Well, that's where the training part of the book comes to play, where I really talked about how you can navigate your multiple lifestyle with productivity, and how you tend to concentrate. Like for me now, if I am writing, right, and I get fed up, say I'm writing the script for a show or a film or something, and I get fed up, or I'm low on energy, I feed into music, right? So I have, like, I mean, I'm from a classical music background. I've got like books and books and books. I just feed into music, and I go to one of my, if I have a concert coming up, good, I'll go to one of the sheets and read and try to sing myself. What I'm doing is I am using this part to heal the other part and bring my energy up. I find that when I do that, when I do a bit of distraction and I come back, I'm starting anew and afresh, you know. And it happens either ways. I could be trying to learn like a script, and I'll just go to something else, and that's how I function. But yeah, you find that most people do not understand how to juggle that. Yeah, I think it's best if you have the same kind of project not happen side by side, but you can have all your sides happening together, like your music, your movie, or whatever sides you've got, having them happen side by side, but not just one of two of each and happen like. I feel like it's a lot of work, and to be fair, we are humans, so we can't even pretend to be very productive because we can't. you know, yeah. So that would be like for me how I've been able to be productive.
You wrote that Jesus is a multipod.
He very well is.
A lot of people are going to find that surprising. Can you speak on this a little bit?
So, you know that Jesus Christ, and I mean, it's the one I believe in, and I'm sorry if my readers or listeners do not know who Jesus is or do not want to, but I'm sorry, that's where I feed from. So I'll talk about him as someone that I know from the inside and also from what the Bible says. Um, Jesus Christ has many aliases. He's the healer, he's the teacher, he's the counselor. That's him being multipod. You know, he has so many sides. Even his father God has so many sides. I mean, he has the blessing side and he has the cursing side, right? So um a lot of people, I mean, when I talk about multipod lifestyle to Christians, I use Jesus Christ as an example because Jesus Christ did not just come and say, "Oh, I'm just going to save the world and I'm just going to teach." No. While he was teaching, he was counseling. Those are two different things. And while he was counseling, he was also healing, right? So he didn't exist as just one person. And that's why we're able to hold on to different sides of him. Some people will hold on to Jesus's healing side. That's where, oh, he's my healer. Some of them, he's their best friend, the redeemer. Some is the teacher. You learn from all he's thought about in the Bible. So yeah, Jesus Christ being a multipod is something that us Christian multipods also should draw inspiration from because he didn't exist as just one person. I mean, he was Son of God on earth, fleshly, but he was to many people different things. And pretty much that's what the multipod lifestyle is. I mean, you know me as a multipod now, right? But there are some people who know me as a writer in those quarters. People know me as a singer in the church, in the different choral groups I belong to. Some people know me in film as a script writer. Some people know me in tech as a product manager. So there's a bit of that going on. And it's the angle you know me from that you understand me from. And that's how Jesus Christ is. You really can't understand Jesus Christ from everywhere. He's like, for me, I personally, like, the side of Jesus Christ I love most is his loving side, his friendly side, right? So it's not, I mean, it's not, I don't see him as a healer in quotes. I know of him as that, but my relationship with him is more from a friendship basis. But some people go to Jesus Christ and talk about healing. That's like the power side of him, not the wisdom side of him in terms of teaching. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much Jesus Christ being a multipod, the ultimate one.
In conclusion, and in wrapping up our conversation today, it's clear that the idea of multipod or multipotentiality is non-binary. It's nuanced. There's multiple layers to looking at the word in itself. So for people who are listening or watching, if they've ever felt like they have multiple talents, even just going back to a story in the Bible where a master gave one servant 5 talents to work on whilst he was away, and the other three, and one of them 1 talent, and then he's now come back to see the owner of 5 talents multiply it to 10, the owner of 3 to 6, and which he was pleased with those first 2 people, but the owner of 1 has very rarely used his talent, and the excuse was, well, I only have 1 talent, so what do you expect me to do with it? Now, to whoever who's just had that story. Do with it as you please. Think about it, think on it, reflect upon it. But the reason why I was telling that story is because when you have talent and it's in multiple form, your duty of care is to use it as best as you can, as opposed to look down on it. So, thanks for sitting with me. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, and I believe in, I have this mantra um, that I always live by, and I'm going to be everything. I'm going to express everything, and I'm going to tell the world every part of me. I'll start from asking the question, what would you be when you grow up? Because that was like every kid was asked that question by the
Mhm.
teachers, parents, friends, and family. For me, in primary school, I think I wasn't sure of what exactly, but I knew I was going to be in the arts. I just knew because I wasn't, I mean, academically, I was not good in the sciences, But anyway, I got into secondary school and did secondary school, joined the school choir, did other art things. I had a book that I wrote, and it's funny how, I mean, it was an exercise book, but it was like a book of novel, like a book of like short stories that I'd written, and then it kind of went around. People were lending it from me, So at that point, I knew that writing was a thing for me. So I was beginning to think in the direction of, okay, do I want to be like a novelist, or I want to write for screen as a screen or script writer? And but anyway, I got into high school, senior high school, and that's where like a lot of things became very dramatic, and the journey became very funny because my mom is a teacher, and this is not me calling her out because I know she did what she did in her best interest, and I will talk about how she kind of has a bit of regret, doing most of these things, which she thought it was in my best interest at the time. So, I mean, I did, when you're in the Nigerian context, when you're in junior secondary school, before you go to senior secondary school, you have to fill in the form and say you want to go to either arts class or you want to go to science or commercial. And I did feel art, because I wanted to be in arts class, but somehow my mom managed to get me into science class. And I knew that was her because I mean she was friends with most of the people, that were doing the academics in the school and everything. So I found myself in science class and started doing very badly academically because whilst you have the option of doing literature or geography, those were like the two courses you could choose. I, as a science student, was doing literature. I loved to go to literature class. I was still sneaking to go to arts classes and be part of the drama and everything that was going on, But I was a science student. I had more friends in arts class because we had like classes together and we always like boring novels and all of those things. Anyway, so there came secondary school. I left, and it was time to go to the university. And so I had this passed me that down thought. And I chose to use the word pass me down because it wasn't my thought originally. Where out of the blues, I wanted to be a medical doctor, you know? And I know that it was something my mom had suggested, you know, somehow, like it got into my subconscious and I started thinking in that direction. And I wanted to go into medics. And I started leaving it because during my gap year after secondary school and before uni, I started going to libraries and just reading anatomy stuff and um, anything about the body and all of that. And, you know, but one thing with the arts, right? It finds you. It has a way to play a part in everything you do. So I did write. I mean, if you're familiar with the Nigerian context, I did write JAM, which is like the pre-qualifying examinations to university. But I wasn't getting the cutoff mark to go into med school. But it was just as good enough to go into the arts, right? But obviously, because the target was to go into med school, that didn't happen. And then I'd stayed in the house for like 3 years, and I now chose to study somewhere else, which is Ghana. So the admission I got in Ghana was to study computer science. Now, if anyone who's known me for the last 5 to 10 years and get to hear that I did study computer science would be like, what? Because obviously, like they don't just they don't just relate, right? I did study computer science in school, and I did come out top of class really. But whilst in school, that thing started coming, and my itchy hands and my itchy ears and my itchy eyes started looking for art opportunities. And whilst in uni, I had like a radio show, a late night radio show. I was singing at a club, making extra dough from that, and so coming out of university, I kind of I kind of knew that I was not going to work with my computer science degree, honestly, and I had not till now. I mean, I've not done anything that has to do with that. I mean, I've worked in tech, but as a media person, and product management, but not as a dev, an engineer, that kind of thing. But that was pretty much what I kind of like studied in school. And coming out of university, I just realized that I'd wasted 4 years because I was not. I felt like if I had gone to something else, the theater arts or anything else, I would have. Now my music director, bless him, he's late now. Late Colonel TC Eru. He kind of saw in me that there are two people my book is really dedicated to. One is my late grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and the other is my music director of blessed memory. For him, from the onset, he told my dad, who was a member of the choir at the time, to allow me follow music, anything in that direction, because he feels like that's where he kept, I mean, then he was like more like a father to me as well. When I ask him, or when he asks me, so what's happening? You're not going to school yet. What's happening? Because I did say that I stayed 3 years before getting to the university. And I just told him, I said, I've not made the cut off mark. And he'd be like, why are you going for medicine? You would regret it. In his exact terms, he said you would regret it if you ever do. Why don't you go into this? Go into music, because I was singing so good. I was in the record of the choir. So there's this thing that when you join the choir, you you have to stay like a probatory period for 9 months before you start singing on the altar. I broke that record. I was the only person, maybe now, I don't know, but at the time, I was the only person that joined the choir, and I went on the altar after 2 weeks, just 2 weeks. Because before I joined the choir, I was self-teaching myself how to read sheet music. So I came into the choir prepared. I could read music better than most of the people that were there. I had the voice. At the time, I was really young, obviously, so I had like the treble voice. I was one of like the best male soprano singers in the choir. So I was already exhibiting that genius. And he just looked at me one day and kind of felt pity for me. It felt like if I go into something else, I'll be trapped. So he always constantly reminded me and said, I'm going to speak to your dad. Allow this boy go and do music or something. So yeah, that's him. And then I would also bring my grandmother to fore, because she's one of the reasons why I kind of wrote this book too. My grandmother was the earliest person to spot this part of me, this multipotentiality, and she was not schooled, so she probably did not understand it, but she gave her support so well that, I mean, if it were to be now, I wonder what I would have done without that level of support. So I was enrolling in shows that my parents did not know of, but her, because obviously she gives me the transport money. She's always the one that if I go for an audition and they don't pick me, I would come back and I'll tell her. She'll say, so what happened? And I said, they didn't pick me. I said, don't worry, the next one they'll pick you. Like she was that supportive. She was always asking me, when is the next one? All of that. And then every time she'll look at some of the people and she'll be like, well, you can ask more than these people. Like she kind of like saw that, because the kind of auditions I started going for earlier on were music and acting auditions, and maybe because I didn't spend so much time after secondary school really really focusing on that. I was really writing exams to go into med school, so maybe that's why both did not did not move. But yeah, so like she's like one of the persons I revere so much when it comes to my journey, because she kind of like just gave validation to my strength, and she knew that, oh, this is something that this guy needs to pursue. Like I said, she was not schooled, but she just was always given that level of support that I didn't get from my parents. And like I said, this is not I'm not calling out my parents in any way. I mean, my dad is a retired soldier, my mom is a teacher. So if you know that kind of merger, you have like a strict dad who is was in the Air Force, and then you have a teacher who is like that, so you'd understand that it's in your best interest at the time. But I mean, I like that the world has changed now and people are beginning to understand this level. I mean, during our time when we're really, really young, you can't write in your yearbook and say you want to be a blogger when you grow up, that kind of thing. But now you see people writing it, you know. So yeah, that's like how my education had kind of like gone from wanting to be what I wanted to what I was told to study, and then coming out, I've always wanted to, if you ask me to go back to school now, I would probably want to go to film school, because for music, I've so self taught myself music to the point that, I mean, I'm not saying that I can't learn anything else, but I'm just saying that I've kind of like dealt with that part. So if I'm going to go to school again now, which I wish I did, would definitely be film school, because that's like one aspect, one industry I'm getting into with fair knowledge, not like the wholesome knowledge, you know. Yeah. So yeah, that's how education has really been with me.